Finding Atlantis. So I still keep seeing people, debating and arguing. I just watched the video of someone trying to, say that Graham Hancock is wrong about Atlantis. Now, here's the thing you have to understand, that I understand, that most of us understand, and everybody should understand. Graham Hancock has a theory that is not his original own personal theory. It's just a theory that he believes in and agrees with, and has seen enough indirect evidence that, raises the idea of, like, what if? So he has a theory that in the past there were advanced civilizations, that it was possible at some point in time in the past humans were able to figure out so many things, was able to understand science, technology, right, which always leads to technology. And they were able to understand things like how things float, and they were able to figure out buoyancy, so they're able to make boats and travel. They can understand how air works, right? They would have figured out a lot of stuff, and it all stems from science. So ancient humans would have figured out science. They would have called it magic and not science, but it's the same thing. So they would have figured it out. So because they would have figured it out eventually, because that's what humans do, if you truly believe that humans, we are apex predator, right? We're top of the food chains. We're super smart. We evolved to be to be the dominant species on this planet. Why would you think ancient humans were not advanced? We're not dominant species. That makes no sense. So clearly the people in the past are just as smart as us. So it wouldn't take that long for them to figure things out. I mentioned this before in many other videos of mine, that it only takes one human being to have a good idea, to have a solution to a problem. And then everybody has that solution, and then the world progresses from that. And all you need is one other human to have a solution to a problem, and that compounds. And since we share this information, we share knowledge, it all adds up, and that's how technology is made. Technology comes from multiple humans combining knowledge, combining ideas, combining information to one another. And this is how they end up in the situation they're in, which is they have boats, they have navigation devices, right? So could there have been a advanced civilization called Atlantis at one point in time? Yeah, that's possible. Another possibility is that it wasn't called Atlantis, but it did exist. It was called something else, and it was a 3 concentric circle, man-made island, essentially, right? However way Atlantis is currently described, there's a possibility that there was civilizations that look a lot like the description of Atlantis. But they didn't have to be called Atlantis to be Atlantis, right? So this idea of wanting to argue that Atlantis didn't exist because it's a story from somebody who you believe made up a story, but not understand that if the person can make up a story about a certain idea, like an advanced civilization, if a human can think of that, they can think of how to make it a reality. So to think that, oh no, it's fictional, Atlantis can't exist because it was just a made up idea from some one guy, is like, one, all fiction comes from facts. I'll use Superman as an example. You can say Superman's not real, he's fictional, but the concepts and ideas that spawned the idea of Superman came from reality, came from the real world. The idea of flying. Flying is not fictional. Flying is a thing that can happen. We have airplanes as proof that flying can happen. We have birds as proof that flying can happen. So something can fly. Can a man fly? Yes, with specific things, obviously, right? They can fly. We have jetpacks and stuff like that. So a man can fly. And the list goes on, right? Usain Bolt is the fastest man alive, right? So a human man running really fast is possible. So Superman is just an exaggerated, right, an extra super version of what most humans can do, right? So it makes no sense to be like, oh, ancient humans couldn't have created anything. Ancient humans couldn't have had a sophisticated civilization. It's like, well, that's incorrect. They definitely could, and we definitely find proof of that every time we dig underground. Because the thing is, all these advanced civilizations, all these human civilizations that did exist at one point are currently under our feet right now. So saying, oh, they never existed, that's wrong. They definitely existed. They're definitely under our feet. They're underwater. They're part of the past, right? They're buried literally in the past. This is why they're called lost ancient civilizations. The ignorance of, like, ignoring the word lost, like, if you don't know what lost is. I literally had to point that out to somebody in the comment section. It's like, you don't seem to know what the word lost means. You're saying, oh, we can't, there's no evidence of it. So how are you saying that this lost ancient civilization exists? Without evidence of it, it can't exist. It's like, What part of lost don't you understand? The evidence of its existence is currently lost. So it'd be hard to show you the evidence of its existence if it's currently lost. You know what else is lost right now? Your great 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 grandfather. He's lost. He's buried underground somewhere. You don't know where. But here's the irony: you exist. You're alive, and clearly you had to have had a great 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 grandfather. And this is always one of my arguments that I use to prove that Atlantis obviously existed. Because if Atlantis never existed, then how come we exist? It's the same argument I use when it comes to people saying like, "Oh, God doesn't exist." What evidence do we have that God exists? It's like the evidence is supposed to literally be us. We are supposed to be the byproduct of God's existence. Now, I'm not saying I'm religious or anything. I'm just saying logically, because I'm using logic, right? It's like if God exists and we exist, right? What made us, right? The idea is that God made us. That's why we exist, because God made us, right? There's that correlation. To simplify that, it's like, it's like, how do you exist? Did you just magically appear one day? No. Your mom and dad made you. Who made them? Their mom and dads. Well, who made their mom and dads? Their mom and dads. And then just keeps on going further back in the past, proving that at some point in the past, something happened to cause you to exist now in the present. Just like in the future, when you're no longer here and you're underground, your ancestors, your descendants, your great 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 grandson or daughter is gonna be like, I don't think I have any ancestors that existed in 2025, making TikTok videos talking about that Atlantis didn't exist. But in reality, he's like, no, you did exist in 2025, saying Atlantis doesn't exist, but because now you're dead, in the future they're like, no way, my grandpa who didn't believe in Atlantis ever existed. But in reality, you do exist. You know you exist, and you have to exist. Being ignorant, saying Atlantis didn't exist, in order for your grandchild to even great 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 grandchild to even exist. And this is the thing. It's the ignorant fallacy of assuming that because you have no direct evidence of something like Atlantis, therefore it never existed. Even though there's indirect evidence that Atlantis existed, and that indirect evidence is literally our existence. For all we know, America itself, United States of America, could literally have been Atlantis itself. And it got wiped out a long time ago. It was underwater for a long time. Then it rose up because the waters went down, right? Henceforth, why the Grand Canyon is a big giant fucking canyon. Because at one point it was underwater, right? And now we're above water now, right? And then the human race started repopulating, right, on this giant continent that we call it the Americas, and then the rest is history, right? Literally, because we talk about Christopher Columbus and all this other stuff happening on this continent, on the Americas, up to this point where we're like, oh, Atlantis didn't exist, but in reality, we could literally be standing, if you're in America, could literally be standing on top of Atlantis itself. America could literally be the remnants of Atlantis, and we wouldn't know because so many people are being ignorant and being like, Atlantis never existed, while we're literally standing on fucking top of it, literally walking on top of Atlantis this whole entire time in an advanced civilization that we created with smartphones and TikTok and going to work and this and that and taking Ubers and all this extra shit. We have all this advancements now, right now, walking around talking about, no, there was never an advanced civilization before us. This is ignorant because it's like saying there was never a great 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 grandfather grandmother in the past that had sex and created the legacy, the family bloodline that led up to me. No way did that happen. No way did that exist. It must be fictional because there's no evidence of it. That's stupid. It's like saying because there's no evidence of the bottle the first time you had baby formula when you were a baby, since the bottle doesn't exist anymore, the formula, right? There's no residue left over from the original formula that was used to feed you as a baby. The baby clothes, let's say the baby clothes you wore doesn't exist no more. So all these things from your birth, from when you were a baby, no longer exist. Does that mean you were never born? Does that mean you never was a baby? You never drank a bottle? You never said goo goo gaga? Like you never took your first step? Are we saying because there is no current evidence of you being a baby, except maybe some pictures, if your family took any pictures or videos, that you weren't never born, that your parents never had sex. Like, do you need your parents' sex tape to have evidence and proof that you were conceived, that you exist because we have a sex tape of your parents making you? No, we don't need that. We can surmise. We can be like, well, if you exist, clearly your parents had sex. Clearly. No doubt about it. Because you exist. The only way you can exist is through sex. So the only way our modern day civilization, the only way America can exist right now is because Atlantis existed. That should be evidence enough. Now, would it be cool to find, like, artifacts and relics and, certain structures that belong to Atlantis? Yeah. That'd be awesome. But the irony is the likelihood of us finding the actual Atlantis, location or a specific spot that we can be like, oh, this is Atlantis. The best we can do is indirect evidence, which is the whole thing that I'm doing, is trying to find the indirect evidence, because that's the only evidence that would still exist. Would be, for example, the Great Pyramid. There's a high probability that the Great Pyramid is an old, ancient Atlantis structure, a structure made by Atlanteans. Right? Now we just need to prove that that's the case. Instead of being ignorant, be like, no, it was just the Egyptians and that's it. No need to, look any deeper. No need to confirm that it was anything other than Egyptian. Like, no, we need to confirm that it's Egyptian. And I have a couple of ways to prove if the Egyptians made it or not. But here will be the crazy part. What if I prove that the Egyptians didn't make the Great Pyramid, and instead it was a different group of humans? And what if that group of humans' DNA is not easy to identify? We can tell it's human DNA, but we can't easily identify what the race, so to speak, is. We can't just look at the DNA and be like, oh, clearly, Hispanic or Asian or European or Filipino or whatever, or Egyptian or Russian or, Roman. Because it would be crazy if it turns out that the Great Pyramid was created by the Romans, or a Roman ancestor. That'd be crazy. Or barbarian ancestors, or the Olmecs, or the Mayans. That'd be crazy, right? To find out that ancient Mexicans, essentially, right, created the Great Pyramid. That'd be cool. But it's just a matter of putting in the work to find out those details, to figure it out. But a lot of people are not really trying to figure that out. I notice less and less people are looking for the truth, and they're just looking to be right in an argument. They want to say something is a certain way, and then they want everybody to agree with them, instead of finding evidence that people will choose to agree because the evidence is the evidence. The truth is what should matter. But too many people don't care about the truth. They only care to argue that they know the truth, when in fact they don't. The truth is the truth. And once the truth is available, everybody will agree with it. No one can disagree with the truth, because the truth is the truth. If somebody tries to disagree with the truth, well, everybody's going to be like, why are you disagreeing with the truth? The truth is the truth. You're the only one trying to disagree with it, so you're wrong. You're weird for trying to disagree with something that has been proven to be true. You know what I mean? So we shall see in the future.